Hey everybody, Papa Todd here again. I really want to focus on self-sufficiency when it comes to food and plants. There's a lot of great herbs in nature that just grow naturally. Lots of medicinal plants out there, and that's a realm that people can focus their entire life on. And it's really cool, some of the things that plants can do. It's amazing stuff. I talk about jewelweed, how it neutralizes a couple of different types of poisonous plants. The main one, which would be poison ivy. Being able to identify poison ivy, knowing if you have to work around it, if you're being forced to walk through it, sure would be nice to know what jewelweed looks like. So check that out. It's a good one. Today I want to talk about how we can just garden a little bit, right? Gardening used to be something that was done by everyone all the time. It was just part of life. Grocery stores came around, and the convenience of that grocery store was amazing. So helpful to people, that didn't have refrigeration or they had limited refrigeration, but they still grew gardens. I remember my grandparents had a very big garden all the time from what I can remember. When I moved to a farm, I think I was 7.5 years old, and we showed up at that farm, and the homestead that had been there for many, many, many years, and the residents there were close to 100 years old, and their garden patch was amazing. When they finally passed away and moved on, the house stayed there for many years, and that little garden spot, I decided at about 9 years old to venture into gardening on my own. Got a little advice from Dad, but he was not a big gardener, but his dad was. My grandfather was a big gardener. And so I'd ask my grandparents what I should grow and those kinds of things. And I went down to that patch and I planted stuff, and man, did it produce. It produced a lot of weeds too. I wasn't really good at weeding. That was not something I felt like was very important. And I got lucky because the content of the soil was so amazing. It made those vegetables grow regardless of how good I was at weeding. And I remember pulling turnips and all kinds of cool things out of the ground that I didn't even like to eat, but still could grow it. With that garden, I really probably should have started with just a couple of things, but I was lucky. I had the opportunity to take what someone had spent the generation building as far as the soil, and I was able to plant in it and see the amazing results. Now that doesn't happen with just a bare piece of ground that you start with. You may till it the first year and you don't get nearly those types of results. So I always try to suggest that people start with maybe just a pot, right? Where something you can control the soil, you can optimize the soil for the very specific plant that you want. A lot of people are doing that with tomatoes, basil, something simple, something that grows well. It's hard to mess up. You definitely want to start with those types of things. But let's even start a half step before then. Let's start with seeding, right? Growing from seed is a real challenge, but there's tons of channels out there, tons of resources out there that you can look up. And I'd invite you to find that one thing that you enjoy to eat and start with that. Start with one thing, simple, maybe two, if you feel like you want to challenge yourself. Start it in a pot, have the ability to take it outside, have the ability to move it inside should in a big storm or a major rain event. Maybe it's already overwatered and you don't want to water it anymore. So starting plants inside, moving them to pots, and having the ability to control the environment will improve your odds and give you a much higher success rate. I think there's Hollis and Nancy, one of my favorite channels to watch out there. He started in, just a single family home, had a normal size yard, and he basically loved to garden. And the tips and tricks that he's got are amazing. And when you have somebody like that teaching you, helping you kind of overcome those things and what to look out for, it raises your awareness level, right? And that's no different. If you went out in nature and you slow down, you start paying attention, your awareness level increases, and your ability to enjoy what you're doing increases that much more. I think one of the great things about gardening, farming in general, is it's an investment. You learn to be patient. You learn that this process is going to take time. And to achieve the ultimate goal, the true reward, is down the road quite a bit. And you, little by little, nurture that, you take care of it, and the reward is there and the payoff is there. Sometimes it's not much of a payoff when you just start with one plant and you only get one little bit of a reward. But ultimately, once you learn the lessons of how to grow that plant on a single or just a few, now you can multiply that. You can increase that. Not so much to the level that's behind me right now, but you could if you wanted to. Sweet corn, things like that. You know, they all bring their different challenges and different abilities, but it's a great way to start, right? So gardening 101, soil is huge. Amending the soil year after year, continuing to improve that. Crop rotation would be the next one. We don't want to plant the same thing all the time back in the same spot, because that plant is sucking up different types of nutrients, nitrogens, things like that, potassiums, and we need to supplement that ground. We need to put in, bone meal, some situations blood meal. Depending on the plant that you're growing, we need to amend that soil because the previous plant pulled it out. So those are key things to start to learn through time. But the self-sufficiency of being able to have that ability to grow food is huge. And to be able to feel good about, I grew it the way I did with no chemicals. It was strictly organic. However you choose to grow those types of foods, when you consume those foods, it's really good for your body, obviously, to keep all those pesticides and things like that out of your food. So huge lessons can be learned from that, and they're great ways of teaching kids how to start and enjoy the harvest as well, being able to see all the aspects of that. For my grandkids, it's great. My kids are growing food and things like that at their places, and being able to let the kids experience that and see how it works is a real blessing for sure. And being able to teach those little lessons as you go along are big. So if these are the kinds of things you want to learn more about, hit the like button, subscribe. I'm gonna be doing a series of these types of things. We're gonna get deep dive into some of the different topics, different things that people are doing out there. And I'd love to hear your comments about what you're growing and your experiences and what you did to kind of overcome some of those problems in today's world. And we can get into lots of other things, the things that I did on the farm when I grew up. We grew we had our own chickens, right? So we had eggs. We had the ability to have fryers. Basically, we grew our own chickens to eat, obviously. Our own beef, same way. And we bartered. We had neighbors that had milk cows, and we had lots of things going on. Those things are fun. They're really enjoyable in life, and farm life is one of those that, people can focus a little bit on what they're really, really good at, and another neighbor might be really, really good at something else, and we'd have the ability to trade. So those kinds of things are the things I want to talk about on this channel, be able to, converse with you and pass these lessons that I've learned on to my grandkids. So if you like it, appreciate you subscribing. And we'll come up with another one here pretty soon, and I'll be sure to share it with you. Take care.